Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. A lot of the time my channel is dedicated towards advanced tactics videos, or I assume a lot of the time that my watchers have got a good grasp of the Imperial Guard basics. But I've had quite a large influx of newer Guard players, or people who are picking up Guard for the first time, maybe as a influencer watching my videos. You never know. And there's a few questions that keep cropping up over and over again. And so I've decided occasionally when these questions come up, a lot, I'm going to make a little sort of Imperial Guard back to basics, starting from the ground up, new recruit, greenhorn style video. So I thought the best place to start, and the question that's been coming up the most, is how does the Imperial Guard Infantry Platoon actually work? And this is actually an amazingly basic question, but also one which a lot of new players, myself included, get wrong the first time you play Imperial Guard. And I think it's a big reason why a lot of people go to veterans instead of guardsmen, because veterans are obviously really easy to understand. You buy a single veteran squad, you can upgrade it, and that's all you need to do. And it's not a very difficult leap for ex-spaceman players to go to veterans, because they're used to that ballistic skill 4. So that's why I reckon veterans are more. Obviously, a lot of people like veterans for other reasons, but that's why I think a lot of newer players play with veterans, and they never really delve into the infantry platoon. So today I'm going to explain the ins and outs of the best unit in the Imperial Guard Codex, the Humble Infantry Platoon. So at its heart, how you've got to think of the platoon is a CAD within a CAD. Basically, it's like in a normal CAD, you've got to take a single HQ and two troop choices basic. Or like in the infantry platoon, the most basic format you must take is one platoon commander, which is in his platoon command squad, which is this squad here, and two basic infantry squads. So it's almost a CAD with it. It's a CAD for in your CAD. And that's probably where I think a lot of the confusion comes from, because people don't really understand that mechanic. They don't really understand that for a single troops choice you get at a minimum 3 squads. That's right, that's the bare minimum. Now I've upgraded these here, but with a few heavy weapons and a few special weapons here. But at its most basic, the infantry squad is 2 10-man rifleman squads and a 5-man rifleman platoon command squad. 5 men, 10 men, 10 men. And you don't need to give them any upgrades if you don't want to. That could be as far as you go. I want 25 men, just las rifles, that's all I want. Now obviously I'm not going to get into that here, but I highly recommend that you do buy yourself some upgrades. Not necessarily the ones I've done here. I've just thrown these together, grenade launcher, missile launcher, grenade launcher, missile launcher, and just a random las cannon on here. And that's the basic platoon. That's what a lot of people see, and then they don't bother upgrading it. But just going back to that idea of thinking of the platoon as a CAD within your CAD, or as a force org chart within your force org chart for those older players. You have more than just an HQ and 2 troop choices in a CAD, don't you? You have all your elites and all your heavy support and fast attack. Well, that's kind of how platoon works as well. You've got all these support elements as well. So you can make a platoon really, really big, because this is the minimum. And it gets pretty big. For example, this is what you can also take in your platoon. So let's have a look at what I mean. So the minimum you must have in your platoon, as we've said, is a platoon command squad and 2 infantry squads. You can also add an additional 3 infantry squads. Okay, and each one of the infantry squads can of course be upgraded with a special weapon and a heavy weapon, which is what I've done here. So in total you can have 5 infantry squads. You can have the 2 that you must take and the 3 additional ones you can take. And that's your bread and butter. Okay, that's your man of the line infantry. So in one platoon you can take 50 infantry. You can take 5 squads of infantry. That is like, if you are Space Marines, that is like for a single troop choice being able to take 5 tactical squads. For a single troops choice. It's crazy. But then you have the support elements of the platoon. So each platoon is meant to be able to act as like a self-sustaining, self-functioning unit. So you may, only having, considering you're only ballistic skill 3, only having 5 or 6 heavy weapons in your platoon might not be enough. You might need some more. So in the platoon, on top of your 5 infantry squads, you can also take 5 heavy weapon teams. And I've just upgraded these with a variety of weapons. You've got to give them, they start off as 45 points basic and they don't come with any weapons. And then you have no choice. If you take a heavy weapon squad, you have to upgrade it with heavy weapons. And they come at the standard points cost. So it's 45 points for the 6 men, and then you've got to pay, for example, 10 points for each autocannon. So that comes to a 75 point squad. Of course, if you want 3 mortars, they're 5 points each. And then las cannons, obviously, they're 20 points each. And you can upgrade and mix and match. If you wanted to, you could have a heavy bolter and some autocannons like that. But that's highly unrecommended. I'm not going to delve into that now. That's a more complicated video. But if you're a newer player, number 1 piece of advice, if you're going to get heavy weapon squads, make sure they all match up. Okay? If you're going to take a heavy weapon squad, make sure you've got 3 autocannons or 3 heavy bolters. Don't take like 2 las cannons and a random mortar. Don't do it. Okay? Buy 3 las cannons, buy 3 mortars, work in threes is what I'm trying to say. So on top, this is all in one platoon, remember guys. So on top of your 5 infantry squads, your platoon command squad, and your 5 heavy weapon squads, you can also take 3 special weapon squads. Now these are again a support element, and like the heavy weapon teams, they're 6-man teams. 6-man teams, and these can each take 3 special weapons. So I've got a melter squad, a flamer squad, and a grenade launcher squad at the back. And so whilst the heavy weapons teams in theory provide you with long range anti-tank or anti-infantry firepower, these are meant to fill in the gaps that your infantry squad can't quite do. Special weapons also help you do that. Maybe you've taken loads of las cannon heavy weapon teams and las cannon infantry squads. Well, maybe you then want like 3 flamer infantry special weapon squads. Okay, you can also these guys can take a demolition charge as well. I think if you take just 2 special weapons, you get, imagine he's got a las rifle, he could instead of having his melter gun, he could have a demolition charge. And you basically, it's like an 8-inch range grenade that you throw, 1 use only, and it's a fucking strength 8 AP3 large blast. It's a demo charge. Quite literally, you're throwing a big stack of TNT at someone. So they're really cool, and they're really cheap. They start off as 30 points base, and you, again, like the heavy weapon teams, if you take them, you must give them special weapons. You can't just run around with a bunch of 6-man rifleman squads, unfortunately. If you take heavy weapons, you've got to upgrade them. If you take special weapon squads, you've got to upgrade them. Okay? So you have 3 special weapons in there. And then on top of all this, so on top of your 5 line squads, your command squad, and your 5 heavy weapon teams, and your 3 special weapons, all in one single troop choice, you can also take conscripts. Now conscripts come, so I was shifting over here. Conscripts come, you have to buy a minimum of 20 of them, and they're 3 points each. So for 60 points, you get 20 men. Now you can max this blob out at 50 conscripts, and they all come in one big unit. You don't get to deploy them separately, they all come in one big unit. Okay, it's just a big bunch of manpower, and they only come equipped with las rifles, and you can't upgrade them with anything else. They're pretty terrible too. They're ballistic skill 2, weapon skill 2, and then leadership 5. Otherwise they've got the same stats as guardsmen. I love these guys though. I love conscripts, right? For 3 points, you get a man with a rifle, and you just can't complain about that. They're really good. No true Imperial Guard player has a bad word to say about conscripts. Not everyone uses them. A lot of people like veterans, but no one will deny the uses of conscripts. Think about it this way. Let's say you max out on conscripts. Okay, let's say you take 50 of them. That costs you 150 points. Now let's say you put a priest in there to make them fearless. It's 175 points. Okay. For the same price as a 10-man tactical squad with a couple of upgrades like a heavy bolter and a plasma gun and a veteran sergeant, some basic standard auto-include upgrades in your tactical squad, you get 50 men. So Space Marines will get 10 men with some upgrades, and you will get 50. You will win that fight. Trust me, you will win it. So on top of all this, so you can take 50 men here, you can take 5 squads here, you can take 5 squads here, plus your platoon command squad, plus your 3 special weapon squads. You can also take a load of tanks. Crazy, right? This is all in one squad, one troop choice. As you say, it's all in one troop choice. So how this works is each one of these infantry squads, basic infantry squads, IS, plus your platoon command squad, each one of those is allowed to take a Chimera or a Taurox as a dedicated transport. So that's right. And that all counts as your single troop choice. That all counts as objective. If you're on a CAD, everything here is objective secured. All those Chimeras are objective secured. These conscripts, these heavy weapons teams, these special weapons, they're all objective secured. They're all in a single troops choice. Now, also semi-related to the platoon is for each platoon command squad that you take, you may also take 1 commissar. So that's why I've included that here. Because whilst they're not under the... Sorry, scratching my arm, wobbling the camera. Whilst they're not under the troop choice section in the codex, you can only take these guys if you've got either a company command squad or platoon command squad. So it's important to remember you can't just take commissars willy-nilly. You've got to take them, well, essentially as part of a platoon. That's what you've got to do. So all this that you see here, that is one platoon. That's one troop choice. Now you might say, well, I'm going to try and round this off quickly. So if you want to stop watching the video here, that basically explains the platoon. Your minimum is your... Let me get rid of him. Your minimum is your 3 squads. Your maximum is all this shit. You can take anywhere in between. You can take 0 to 5 of these, or you can take 1, 2, or 1, or however many you want. You can take 1 or 2 or non-special weapons. So you're pick and mix, basically. It's a pick and mix. You can take bare bones, a platoon, and then loads of heavy weapons teams. It's so flexible, super flexible. So that's the platoon explained. Now, just a little bit extra. Some of you might be thinking, why the hell what's the point? What is the point? Well, the point is that this sort of structure hails back to the day when there was no such thing as allies, there was no such thing as formations. The only thing that existed was the CAD, and back in the day it was called the Force Organization Chart. And you got your HQ, your 2 troop choices, your maximum of 6 troop choices, and 3 of each other. Fast attack, elite, and heavy support. And that's all people used to get. And Guard were unique because they got the ability to take all this shit for 1 troop choice. And the reason behind that was because they were meant to be like a horde army. They're meant to be a horde army, but if you look at how horde armies worked in the other codexes, you still only got 1 squad, but you can make them up to 30 people strong. That's like 30 Orc boys or 30 Tyranids. And the Imperial Guard weren't meant to be like a mob of Tyranids or a mob of Orcs. They were meant to be like a disciplined, structured military force. So that's where this came into. So it's a way for Games Workshop to give you the ability to take a horde-style army, but not just to take... It wasn't the same as just taking another army where you can take 30 blokes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It was this ability... It was this cool little fluff feature that they included, and it's really, really gives flavour to the Guard, because no one else could do this at the time. And they've obviously lost this slightly with formations and whatnot, because now and unbound, because now everyone can just take whatever they want. But in a normal game of 40k, a traditional game of 40k, CAD on CAD warfare, a lot of tournaments are doing this now. The Guard really shine. And one last thing to sign off on is if you guys have ever heard of something called Highlander, which is where you can only take one of each choice in the game. So you can take so if you're a Space Marine player, you can only take one tactical squad, and then you must take one scout squad. With the Guard, Highlander's a fucking joke, because this all counts as one troop choice in Highlander. So you could take your whole army could be one troop choice in Highlander if you wanted it to be.